Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by the AC Airport. Plan your next vacation now. Spirit Airlines is offering nonstop flights from Atlantic City International to Boston, Atlanta, San Juan, Miami, and other exciting destinations. Visit spirit.com. Mike Gill, Geoff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast is with me as we take a look at some of the key stories heading into Eagles training camp, some NFL news notes, and more on today's edition of Football at 4. There's Geoff Mosher. What's going on, bud? How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How you doing?
Everything is good. It's Happy Hour Friday. You're not normally here on the Happy Hour Friday. We bring energy on Happy Hour Friday, Geoff Mosher. Come on, man.
All right, my bad. I'm actually looking forward to a happy hour today. So let's get it going. Pour me something.
I know, right? Here we go. All right, so let's get into a couple of things that you guys have been kind of pontificating about this week on Inside the Birds. I know you kind of looked at your overview on the defensive side of the ball. So I guess number one, we've been kind of hinting at it as what's that defensive front going to look like? I think we're all kind of waiting to see what John Gannon does here. But with that, what kind of anticipation do you have for Fletcher Cox this year in terms of his role and playing time, his usage? Are we going to see normal Fletcher playing time and snaps, or do you think we're going to start to see the beginning of him being scaled back a little bit?
It's a great question. It's trying to read the tea leaves of the moves. I mean, first of all, he's coming off clearly a decline year last year. Now, you could say some of that was the new scheme, but in general, he was not the Fletcher Cox that we have come, he had his run of 6 Pro Bowls snapped. And then the team decided in the offseason it didn't want to be, sort of wedded to him long-term the way it was with that contract structure. So they released him now, took the cap hit, but then they wanted him back and he wanted to be back, which is really interesting given how the year started off last year and he was not happy within the scheme, but they must have patched it up, and he really did want to be an Eagle. So they brought him back, but on a 1-year, $14 million deal, which is a strange kind of deal for just 1 year, but still a high number. So the question is, how do you go forward with him through this year, thinking it's probably going to be his last? Is he mainly a pass rusher for this team? Do you want to try to preserve snaps for him? If you did that, then you'd probably not want to play him against the run, which means you don't want him to be a first down player. If you have your 4-2 or your 5-2 alignment, you might have Jordan Davis flanked by Javon Hargrave, and then maybe Milton Williams gets in there as the other defensive sort of tackle or interior lineman, I should say. And then you've got Sweat and Hassan Reddick on the outsides there. Or if not, you're playing him on first down and you're playing him as many snaps as you normally play him, which, is something that even in the past under Jim Schwartz they've tried not to do. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they preserve his snaps and what kind of role they have for him.
Yeah, and last year, I think we've discussed this in the past. It was about where he said, well, they pay me to rush the passer, and John Gannon didn't seem like that's the role that he wanted for him. How much does he want Fletcher Cox in there, and how much does he want that particular role, that position, to go rush the passer as opposed to just being a space eater?
Right, exactly. It's like, what role, does he play now? Because Fletcher's always been adaptable, and he's always been able to do a bunch of things. And then now you've got Jordan Davis in there to be that space eater and that two-gapper. And it doesn't seem like he's ready to be a pass rusher just yet. And first of all, Jordan Davis has to get there and be in shape and the correct weight and everything. But ideally, if he is, they want to get him on the field. So if they do, and he starts off playing kind of head up on the center in that nose tackle stance, who do you want to surround him with at that point? It's kind of a fascinating conversation to see what they do with those two guys in there, and then, of course, where they put Javon Hargrave and how they mix and match stand-up rushers with interior defensive linemen.
Right, and then we're going to see, Fletcher, Javon Hargrave, those two guys played a lot together last year. Do they split them up? Do they pair them differently? Does only one of those guys play at a time? Do they keep those two guys together? I think that's another thing that we're all waiting to see how John Gannon, plays that all out.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that look, Hassan Reddick's the strong side linebacker is going to come down on the line of scrimmage on first and second down if the opponent's going to run. And Josh Sweat is, I would think, is your opposite side defensive end. He probably plays more with the hand in the dirt, although you could stand him up if you're trying to show a couple of 3-4 looks, depending on down and distance. And I would think those are the two guys that primarily see the most time on the edges. And how do you work Brandon Graham in coming back from the Achilles? And then what do you do with Derek Barnett, who you brought back also on a really weird contract? Like, when you look back on the offseason, like, I feel like the Eagles made a lot of moves that made sense. And at the time of signing Derek Barnett, I could understand they didn't know who they were going to have, and he played for the team, and nobody kind of blew him away with the deal in free agency, so you bring him back. But at this point, I really don't know how they use him, when they use him, where they use him, and if it's going to be worth the money that they wind up paying him.
Yeah. The other one, too, I guess I'll ask you this on that note. If they thought they could get Nakobe Dean, do you think they bring in Kaiser White?
Probably, Mike, because TJ Edwards is only on a 1-year deal, and he's now a base linebacker as it should be. And Davion Taylor's been hurt, and is a little bit overdrafted there in the first place. And while he has shown his athleticism, I wouldn't say he's shown that he's got what it takes to be a no doubt about it 3-down linebacker yet or at all. So I mean, you could make the argument that they needed 2 linebackers, and Kaiser White again is kind of that guy that's on a 1-year deal, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of role he has. The Eagles have not succeeded lately with the 1-year linebacker deals. There's been a lot of guys that they've tried to bring in who played well in other schemes and then have come to the Eagles and have just not been what they were hoping for. Maybe Kaiser White breaks that streak. I know a lot of people have high hopes for him, but as I always say, there's a kind of a reason you're a free agent and the reason you sign a 1-year deal. So he's going to really have to prove that he's going to be an upgrade to this linebacker core. He'll get that opportunity. But like I said, we've kind of seen this act play out before. So you have to hope that the Eagles, the law of averages catches up here and the Eagles actually hit on a good 1-year linebacker contract this time.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. Let's take a look at Josh Sweat, because you mentioned Barnett and we're talking about the line. What is Sweat? Who is this guy? Give us some. They signed him. They targeted him. They brought him. They extended him, brought him back. Is Josh Sweat an elite pass rusher? Can he be one? Is he just an average pass rusher? Is he a 5-sack guy? Is he a 12-sack guy? What's his floor and ceiling?
So that's a great question, and that's what we've been kind of trying to figure out on Inside the Birds lately. You watch him play, and he's a really powerful pass rusher. He can really get his shoulder into the offensive tackle and edge a guy and push guys back. And you saw that last year. Even when the pass rush struggled at times, you would see Josh Sweat be able to create pressure. I think last year was clearly his best year. I think he only finished with 6.5, 7 sacks, something like that. He made the Pro Bowl as an alternate. He obviously was not able to play in the Tampa Bay game because of that freak stomach issue that he had that wound up being what he called life-threatening and internal bleeding. And that was too bad because he didn't get that experience, that playoff experience. But you do wonder with a guy like him, they've had to monitor him in the past with the knees. Wasn't an issue last year. He played more snaps than ever. But did we see what we're going to get from Josh Sweat pretty much every year, consistently a 6, 7, maybe 8 sack guy, or does he have the potential to get up into the double digits consistently, be one of the better defensive ends in the league, somebody who can get you 12 to 15 sacks a year? Usually those guys have a combination of great speed and power, or speed to power, or they do things with their hands, hand usage that allows them to get off offensive tackles. I don't know that I've seen all of that from Josh Sweat to say that his peak, zenith Josh Sweat can get you 12 to 15 sacks. I'm not sure. So while he had a great year last year, a really good year, I'm not certain that he's going to be that much better than he was.
Yeah, he's a definite interesting guy to keep an eye on. To me, because is he a part-time player? Is he a pass rushing specialist? Is he one of those guys that excels better when he plays less snaps like he did a couple of years ago. Not that he had a bad year last year, just, was the impact wasn't noticeable from his week in and week out there. Derek Barnett, let's look at him. What's his role? What's his contract say that his role is? Because I was kind of having this conversation earlier in the week. I guess maybe Monday or Tuesday. I was on with Birds 365, and Barnett came up, and I said I liked the deal, and one of the guys was going back and forth with me. I said, well, I don't anticipate him playing all that much. I think they're just situationally going to use him. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like he's depth. I wouldn't call him expensive depth because it's not like his contract is exorbitant. And again, it's really just basically 1 year, but it's still more than your average backup defensive end who may not play a whole lot. Again, you're going to rush 4 guys at the passer for the most part. Every once in a while, you'll see a 5-man rush. We know that Jonathan Gannon didn't blitz a whole lot, but even if he does, we're talking, if he ups it to like becoming a 20% blitzer, still most of the time that you're rushing the passer, you're going to be rushing with 4. So there's a lot of guys who are ahead of Derek Barnett now on the pass rushing depth chart, starting with Sweat and Hassan Reddick and Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox. So what's left in the pass rush for Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett are really good questions. And Milton Williams is in there too, who showed you some burst. So that's why I say it's sort of like expensive depth, because he may wind up not playing a whole lot. Yeah. But then again, when you look at their defensive end picture, if Sweat or if Sweat were to get hurt, I guess Barnett might be the next guy up if it's not Brandon Graham, if they're trying to preserve Brandon Graham. So it's kind of one of those fascinating, can't wait to see the way it all unfolds during the season type of scenarios.
This one's interesting. I saw this today. Pro Football Focus ranked the 32 best contracts in the NFL ahead of this season. All right? So when the Eagles signed Jordan Mailata, a buddy of mine, I hope he's listening right now, would rip the contract. And Roseman, horrible contract. Guy hasn't proven anything. Why would you give this deal? Hasn't done a thing. I read the article ranking the top 32 NFL contracts. Number 1, Jordan Mailata. He has the best contract in the NFL, apparently. Somebody knew what they were doing.
Well, you got to have an appreciation, right, for how difficult that contract was for the Eagles and for Jordan Mailata's reps to do, given what he had sort of shown the year before in a very small dose, but, how far he had come and how good he looked, and then really what he could do when given the opportunity to be a full-time player at a position that, you and I both know is very expensive. So it was very difficult for the two sides to kind of meet in the middle. And to your friend, we could say, hey, look, had they not done that deal and just let him play it out, and he became a free agent this past offseason, imagine how much money the Eagles would have had to have paid him back in March when free agency started to retain him compared to what he's making now. So that's that roll of the dice that you take. They did it with Carson Wentz. They gave him all that money and thought they were going to get an elite quarterback for a long time at a discounted rate, because when Carson Wentz signed that deal, if you looked at how the quarterback number went once Dak Prescott and others signed their deals, it would have been a discount rate had Carson Wentz played at a high level. He did not, and we all know what happened. But that's the kind of the dice roll. I always am of the opinion, when you got a guy who you think can be a long-term starter for you at a premium position, and you can sign him to a contract extension a year before free agency, it's a good roll of the dice to do it, as long as you feel like you've seen what that player can be, or at least glimpses of it, because the price tag even a year as you get closer to free agency could be double. And in fact, this contract, Mike, if Jordan Mailata has another good year, let's say he makes Pro Bowl or All-Pro this year, you can guarantee that those are going to have to meet again. The current deal made a little bit more friendly for Mailata going forward.
I agree. I argue that same thing. It's like, look, they saw enough of him that if he got to free agency, that he would have made a ridiculous amount of money. But the Eagles have been notorious for this, haven't they? To the point, Jeff, it's got them in trouble in the past where they targeted guys at younger ages. They signed them, and then those guys ended up holding out. You know, Brian Westbrook, and there's a lot of examples of guys, mostly during the Reed era, where they would bring guys in, and then a year or two into their deal, they weren't happy because they outperformed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Eagles became victims of their own success in that regard because then they changed the rules against it. But yeah, no, I'm much more, and I know it's not going to be foolproof, and I know there's going to be times where Brendan Carson Wentz, and I'm sure there are some other contract extensions that the Eagles and other teams have given out after 3 years, thinking they were going to get more reward for it, and have not. But the penalty of doing it the other way and missing out. And, you know, actually the Eagles felt the brunt of that several years ago, and I criticized Chip Kelly for it when they did not give Fletcher Cox an extension after 3 years. They waited until after the fourth year. They didn't use the franchise tag on him, but then they had to pay him a contract of over $100 million, which he's deserved. He helped win him a Super Bowl, but they could have got him a lot less had they done it after 3 years. And then I remember the ridiculous discussions at the time of, well, you don't pay a defensive tackle over $100 million because no one's ever won a Super Bowl with a $100 million defensive tackle. Well, the Eagles obviously showed that that's not the case because they did it. But they had to do it with Fletcher Cox making a lot of money, and then they've had to restructure his deal 3 or 4 times since and sort of created a scenario that they would have rather avoided. But again, Howie Roseman wasn't in charge of contracts that year, and so it never got done.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, and we're closing in on training camp July 26th. We will be 1 month away, or inside a month, when Mosher's back on Monday here on the Sports Bash Football at 4, 97.3 ESPN. Happy Hour Friday, Moshe. Appreciate it, bud.
What are you pouring me?
I can't remember when I went to the beach with you. What did you drink at the beach that day? A little something fruity, didn't you?
I could have been one of about 70 different things.
You're a Yingling guy, aren't you? Yingling?
No, I've been a Modelo guy. I've really enjoyed the Modelo.
Okay. Oh, Modelo Especial for you. All right.
Especial with a lime in that.
I can serve that one up to you on this Happy Hour Friday. No problem, Geoff Mosher.
Appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend.
All right. See you. Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash.